Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for part 2 of the how to achieve a rustic antique distressed look on your signs. I am Dawn from Sign Parties 101 and Sign Party Central, where I teach people like you how to make money with their own sign party business. And it is 1 o'clock already in the day. Holy smokes, it goes by so fast and days always don't go as planned. Hence why I'm wearing the same shirt I was yesterday. But when you have 7 kids home all the time and one knocking their permanent teeth out, you know, sometimes schedules get thrown off. So anyways, I am going to get right into it. Welcome. Say hello when you join in so I know that you're watching. Hey, Kim. I see some of my Sign Party Central people on here. I was already live in that group this morning talking about our master class and how to get more Facebook followers. Hey, Cindy. Okay, so last week, if you watched that one, I talked about how to get a rustic look when we stained and then we painted over the top. Now for this one, I've decided to just reverse it. So we're going to be painting and then staining over the top. Okay, there's 4 different parts to this series that I'm going to walk through, and I had mentioned last week that it was kind of hard to pick where to start because they're like all my favorite, but I decided to do this one next because it's literally the reverse of last week, but you're going to get a totally different look. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Hey, Shauna. Okay, so I'm doing the same size sign. So this is just a little planked sign. I used 2 1x4s. I glued and nailed them together using little 1x2 strips. And so this is 17.5 by 7. So each 1x4 is 3.5 inches wide. So you get 7 inches by 17.5 attached with 1x2s. Really simple. So this is what we're going to start with. I'm going to put this down. So if you remember last week, I did the dark stain and the off-white paint, and I'm doing the exact same colors this week, but I'm reversing it. So I'm going to use, this is my Apple Barrel Antique Parchment. Now normally for my parties, I use my big bottles of Home Depot wall paint, and I love this off-white. It just takes the edge off of like the stark white, but you can't really tell that it's off-white unless you compare it to a white. So I love this. And so when I went and got my gallons made, I just had Home Depot color match this color. So if you're looking for a nice cream color, I love the Apple Barrel Antique Parchment is what this is. So I'm just going to put a bunch on my little plate here. Move this down so you guys can see. And I'm just going to take a brush. And now same kind of thing that I did last week on the top, I'm going to do this on the bottom. So I'm going to brush it on, and at the edge, I'm going to lift my brush so I don't get full coverage to the end. I want that kind of distressed look with this paint, but we're going to do this first instead of second. So I'm going to just brush it on. I'm going to leave a little bit around the edge. You guys can see that. I'm not going all the way to the edge of the sign. I'm just going to leave a little bit of space. And again, lifting up my brush at the end. See how that's not totally to the side? Because when the stain goes on it, it's going to get those areas darker, and that's what I want. So just real simple. It doesn't need to be a thick coat by any means. Just going to do a little bit. And the beauty with Rustic is that it doesn't have to be perfect, which is totally right up my alley. I always say, like, my dad is my boards guy, and he's like a woodworker, which you have to be precise. And my mom is a quilter, which you have to be precise. And I do Rustic because you don't have to be precise. So I'm just going to add some paint, and then I'm going to stain over this, and then we're going to sand it at the end. So again, totally doesn't have to be perfect. You can see I left a little bit on the edge up there, a little bit on the bottom, and then a little bit on the edges. And I'm also going to go just put a little bit on the sides. On this side. And I love this too because it looks so fun, but yet it just takes a few minutes to do. So there is that, and I'm gonna set my brush and my paint aside for a minute while we kind of let this dry. And again, if you use a really thin coat, you don't have to wait that long for it to dry. So if you're joining me, say hello. Tell me what part of the country or world you are watching from, because that's always fun for me. I'm in Minnesota, and it's finally above freezing here. It's been above freezing for a while, but we did get snow in May, so hasn't been that long. Okay, so that is pretty dry. Hello. Margot's from Delaware. Awesome. I have not been to Delaware. North Carolina. Hey, Debbie. Manitoba. It's hot today. Nice. Minnesota. Oh, yes. Fellow Minnesotan. Hi from Hawaii. Oh, my gosh. Will you send some beach sun to me, please? Okay. So this sign is ready to stain. So again, if you're just joining in, we left some open areas on the paint. It's just got a thin coat of off-white paint on it. Coastal Maine, Illinois, Nebraska. I used to live in Nebraska. It was my favorite place ever. Seriously, we lived there for 7 months. And we met some of the most awesome people. What am I doing? Okay. So I am going to use the Varathane Fast Dry Stain. This is the only thing I use at parties. It's fast dry, so it literally, you wipe it on, you wipe it off, and you're ready to stick your stencil down. That's one thing I learned the hard way, is that you don't want to use regular oil stain for your parties, or your stencil will not stick to it. Might seem like obvious to some people, but to me, again, I didn't have a group and I didn't have anybody to ask when I started my parties, and that's something that I learned the hard way. So it is, again, Varathane Fast Dry. You can also use a water-based stain, and those dry quickly too. But so what I'm going to do is just stick my foam brush into my stain, and then I'm going to stain right over the paint. And now I just want to put a little bit on here, and I'm going to use my rag and wipe it off to see what kind of coverage I'm getting. And then I'll know if I want to go darker or not. And that is beautiful. So I'm just going to leave it like that. So again, I don't need a ton. I'm not letting it soak in. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just going to give it a quick brush over. Kind of get in the cracks. The longer you leave stain on the wood, the darker it's going to be, because the more it's going to soak up into the wood. So I'm going to do it lightly here, and then I'm going to get the edges and see how I like it. Your gloves crack me up. Yeah, they're not like super sexy or anything, and they're big, but you know what? They're like, oh gosh, I don't remember, 15 bucks for 1,000 of them or something like that, and I think they work great for parties because I just, you know, pass them out and then throw them away and we're good to go. So I'm wiping some stain on the sides and then wiping it off right away. And the one thing with this stain you want to do is keep wiping it off until it's not visibly wet. Especially if you have a stencil going down on it, you want to make sure that you wipe until it's not wet anymore, or again, your stencil won't stick. So I'll show you a close-up of the front in a second before we sand, because It looks amazing, which I don't know if you can tell from your spot yet. And it's crazy how it is exactly the same as last week. Same colors, same everything, except all I'm doing is reversing the order. So last week we stained and then painted over the top, and this week we paint and stain over the top. So that's the only thing that I'm doing different, and I'll show you guys in a second what an amazing finish this gives you. All right, so I got all 4 sides done. And we have a little visitor here. All right, check that out. Is that not gorgeous? Look at that. It almost looks like a real weathered board. I can see there's a little bit lighter spot here, so I'm gonna just, the beauty of it is you can just keep adding until like it looks right to you. Beautiful. All right, so now since that's stained, I'm gonna set my stain aside and grab my sander. Oh, it's frozen. Am I frozen? My phone did say reconnecting, so hopefully I'm back on. Okay, so see, this is what it looks like before. So you don't even need to sand if you don't want to, but I'm going to because I like to sand pretty much everything. So pretty. So this is just painting underneath the stain. So now I'm just gonna take my sander quick and sand around the edges. And I'm going to show you this before I kind of fix it. You're back. Okay, good. If I go out again, let me know. So I sanded that off. This got a little bit lighter than what I wanted. And again, the beauty of it is I'm just going to take my rag and just kind of fill it in and kind of bring some of that color back. Because it was a little bit, it took off a little bit more than I was going for. But there. So I sanded around the edges and kind of lightened it up to give it almost like a border. And then I'm going to do my stencil now. So, and then when I post this, I'm going to post a finished picture when I'm done like I did last week. And I'm going to mail it to somebody because I just mailed out the one from last week to somebody that I chose. Stay out. Someone that I chose, or randomly, I just picked a number and went to that comment. And so if you guys want to win this, just comment on my picture that I post when it's all done. And I just mail it to you. So you can have a Dawn original. Okay, so for those of you who are interested in knowing what kind of stencil I'm using, this is 631 with AT60 transfer tape. And I love 631. It's what I always use for all my parties forever and ever. Although, just like I said last week, if you're doing a painted background and don't want any of the paint to peel up, now on Distressed I didn't care, so I still used 631 last week too. But you can use vinyl 810, and that has been amazing as far as not pulling up any of the paint. But again, with these rustic ones, I don't care. And my machine likes to cut 631 way better than it likes to cut 810 for whatever reason. And so, so I'm sticking to the 631. So this is 631 removable vinyl with AT60 transfer tape. I get them both at US Cutter. Don't forget to sign it. Oh, okay. The other one I wrote a little note on the back, so maybe I'll do that with this one too. Oh my goodness, look at, I wasn't paying attention. Okay, so I'm gonna stick this down onto the sign And again, for those of you who know me, I don't measure. I am gonna unstick it a little bit, just because 631 is really sticky. But here the thing is if it ever pulls up too much paint or stain or whatever, like see, I can see it already did because this has paint on the background, so it's gonna stick pretty well. You can always touch it up. Take your rag and go back. This is one thing at my parties, I tell people all the time, don't freak out. Like, everything is fixable. Nearly everything is fixable. There's been a couple times where we've had outdoor parties and the wind blew their stencil and it stuck together like this. Well, we couldn't really fix that. But pretty much everything is fixable. So I'm gonna set this down. And I do not measure. I always eyeball it. Might get me into trouble sometimes, but. So I'm gonna smooth it out and then just remove the transfer tape. I didn't want to burnish it down too hard because, again, I know that this is some painted background. You're welcome, Jennifer. Okay. You guys are funny. I might just have to give away more signs. You guys can do this too. If you do a tutorial for your customers, or you paint something or whatever, and then you're like, I don't, you know, I would have like 700 signs just laying around, and I just give them away. Or another thing you can do is you could, a lot of people ask me that are local for donations to fundraisers and stuff like that. Those type of signs are perfect for giving away to people, and it's always fun to give back. That's like, giving is one of my love languages. I love it. And gifts, like GIFs, GIFs, whatever. For those of you who are in my group, I like to communicate in GIFs. So you guys always make my day when you answer me or comment back with a little funny GIF. Okay, so I am going to use the same white paint for my letters, which is the antique parchment from Apple Barrel, which is also what I matched my big gallons to from Home Depot, because it's just a nice creamy white that's not too bright, but it's not too yellowy, if that makes sense. What paint did you paint under the stain? That's just what I painted. It's a creamy off-white from Apple Barrel, which you can use any kind. But again, the key is very, 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 very light coats. Think of a dry sponge, and we're just gonna go up and down. The first coat is gonna look really spongy, very thin, very messy and sloppy, and that's okay. That's how you know you're doing it right. And again, with these, I might take a sander to it when I'm all done. We'll see how I feel. So that's gonna be first coat. Oh, just like that. Nice and spongy. You can still see the stain through the paint, which is totally fine. That's how you want it. We're just gonna seal these edges with this paint. Get a nice base coat. Not gonna worry about how it looks or how good it's filled in or anything like that. We just wanna dab up and down with very, very, very light paint. If you start to think like, this doesn't really look right, it's kind of messy, that's exactly how you know you're doing it A-okay. So the first coat, again, is gonna look real spongy. But this is how you get crisp lines, and it doesn't even matter really how bumpy your sign is. Or I never Mod Podge, I never use the base coat paint, nothing like that. Takes up too much time, more cost. Just learn to use very, very light coats. So that's my first coat. See how it looks sloppy, messy, all that? Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Yes, I know. That's what I said, Tina, last week, is that some of you are going to cringe because my letters were perfectly crisp and all that, and I just took a sander right to the top. But after that first initial like, oh, what are you doing? Then it's like amazing and it looks great. So now I'm gonna do the same thing, very light coat, but since it's the second coat, it's gonna fill in all of those areas that look a little spongy, and it's gonna make it look nice and crisp, and we're gonna get everything filled in and looking good, and I'm gonna show you the difference between the first coat and the second coat. So if you can see, that second coat, that's first coat. See how it's nice and filled in and that's nice and spongy? So you can see the difference there. So same thing, very light. Just keep dabbing, dabbing, dabbing. Yes, sanded signs are my favorite too. I will also have this design as a free giveaway. I'll post that to the site just like I did for the farmhouse one. For those of you who want it. As a thank you for joining me on this series. It's always fun, I think, to learn how to do something maybe a little bit different than what we normally do, or a little bit different than what we thought, or just being able to learn a different technique. The other two that I'm doing coming up are still my favorites. I love them all, and I do them depending on, you know, again, just like the look that I want. One of them I'm going to be doing is I have a big sign in my laundry room done in this technique, and I love it. And my whole entire headboard of my bed is done in that technique as well. So I'm excited to show you that. And there's no paint involved. So can you guys guess what it is? Okay, almost done. I'm going to get back to the questions since I can't read and paint at the same time. Grit sandpaper, I just saw that one quick. You know, anything in the 200s or 300s is basically what I use. I think the stuff I was using, I got a new sander, and so this came with it, which is a little more rough than I would like typically. I had 320, I think, on my other one, and so I just haven't changed it. I could, but so 320, 300, 2 something. I mean, it really doesn't matter. Okay, so that is my stenciled sign, and now I'm going to peel off and enjoy the look of it, because it's going to look nice and rustic. Cute. I keep shedding and my hair keeps touching me. Okay, so this is what it looks like before I weed it and before I take a sander to it. All right. So I'm just gonna weed out these little the insides of my leaves. You guys can see that. You guys, I have a hair. It's like stuck under my stencil. Okay, this is the problem. I don't know how many moms are out there. Do you guys lose your hair after having babies? My hair is about as thick as it comes, and I still lose gobs of it, and I still have gobs of it to lose. But I won't complain, I guess. Thick hair is better than no hair, but it kind of gets in the way when I'm painting. Okay, you guys, I am like already in love with this finish, and I'm gonna hold it up for you as soon as I get all these little pieces out. Because you can probably already see it from there. Now, I always peel wet, even at parties. I do not wait for the paint to dry. If someone accidentally uses too much paint, if you wait for the paint to dry, you can peel up the paint with the stencil, and we do not want that. And so I always tell them to peel when wet. Just be careful when you pull, and that's going to eliminate a lot of headaches if you have people that use too much paint, which seems like there's always one at every party that doesn't like to listen. So I'm going to finish this little leaf here. I love this design, but it's kind of putsy to weed out. So bear with me. Almost done. Oh, come on. I don't even know. Maybe I shouldn't take a sander to it. I think I might have to, though. Actually, you know what I'll do? I'll just manually sand it with my hand. I mean, with sandpaper in my hand. Okay, so here is the sign before, I'm sorry, it's backwards, before I sand it. And you can tell, I mean, even though this is a pretty bumpy, you can tell it's bumpy because of the way that it's sanded off. If you look at the letters are crisp, and then we're gonna go ahead and just sand it. So I'm gonna take, I didn't plan this, so I don't know if I have any sandpaper next to me. We'll just take this stuff off. You know what, I thought I did. Yep, I have some right here. Okay, which also belongs on a sander, but this is a little bit finer. Oh, I can't even tell. But I'm just gonna take it and I'm gonna lightly go back and forth. Oh, I love this. Look at what it's doing. See right here in this ripple? See, these are little lines in the wood, and it's taking some of that off, and I love that. It makes it look like this is aged, like it's been like this for a long time. Perfect. I'm going to take my tack cloth, which is tacky, hence tack cloth. It's sticky, so it's going to get some of that fine grit and dust off of my board. There, and now we have it. See how that all just kind of blends together? And then you can see at the edge where we had the white paint and then just the stain, gives it a nice mix. So this is paint, then stain. Totally different look, same type of stuff, just in a different order. All right, I'm just gonna check here quick if we have questions so I can answer any if there are some. I love seeing all the states you guys are from. That is awesome. Okay. All these people would like a sign. Okay, does anyone ever reuse their HT60 and transfer tape like I do? Yeah, I will if I'm at home. At parties we don't, but if I'm at home I'll reuse it because it's definitely still sticky enough. Hopefully I didn't make you cringe too much. Do you ever lose any little pieces when you unstick the vinyl to your shirt? Not usually, no. I don't. I mean, maybe if there was like ever a design with like an itty bitty tiny little dot or something, but no, like 99.9% of the time, I actually don't ever remember losing any. And we have people do that at parties all the time because actually a lot, not AT, 631 is staticky too. And so especially here in Minnesota during the winter time, it's so dry. And so we'll have people stick it to their shirt just to take the static cling out. So when they go put it on their sign, it doesn't suction down to it. And we've never had anybody lose it. So Okay, you are welcome. What is the tool? You mean the weeding tool? This is one that came with my silhouette like 4 years ago when I started. Otherwise, I use these guys, which are a waxing tool. You can get on Amazon or at Harbor Freight. Lots of different things. How do you not get paint all over yourself? Yeah, I forgot to wear my apron, and like I said, I'm wearing the same shirt I was yesterday. Oh well, don't tell. What do you do in the case that someone does pull up their paint? Are you meaning for their letters? If they do peel up the paint like a lot, then I'll give them a new sign because I want to keep them happy. Now, if they start to peel up and a little bit comes up and we can catch it before they just rip it off, then if you take a little bit, two different things, you can take a little bit of sandpaper and actually sand, while their stencil is still down, take the sandpaper and sand very lightly over the words, and that will release that grip, I guess. It will release it from the stencil, so then you can peel it up with the paint staying down. Or if you have an X-Acto knife, you can cut around the letters, but I feel like the sandpaper works a little bit better. It'll just take off that paint on the top and then release it from the stencil. Basically, literally, when I say most problems you can fix at parties, most problems you can fix. The biggest key ever is just to act like everything is no big deal. Like, even if you're in your mind going, I don't know what I'm going to do and how I'm going to fix that, you come across to them as like, no problem, we'll fix that. Just, wait till you're done or catch me at the end, or I'll come back to you in a little bit when you're finished or whatever. You want to keep them like nice and calm. And since 95% of everything is fixable, you just have to kind of learn that and trust your gut and trust your abilities to be able to fix it. And so really just keep your calm so they stay calm, and then you fix it, and then you look like the hero. So, nope, I don't seal with wax. The only ones I seal are custom signs. We don't seal at parties. If they're putting a porch sign or something outside and they want to seal it, then I tell them that's up to them, and I'll recommend that they use like a Minwax polyacrylic or something. But we do not do that at parties, and I don't do it unless I'm doing a custom. So if you win this, it won't be sealed. Sometimes the paint does smear, but that's the beauty of sanding. It's supposed to look like that, so don't worry about it. You can start off by using a very fine grit just with your hand, so you can kind of control it better. The orbital sander is a little more rough. You can't control it as much, but just get some in your hand and do it, and you'll be just fine. Good, I'm glad you guys like it. What color is stain? This is Kona. I used Kona Varathane. So this is the dark brown Kona is what I used on that. Yes, I use the Graphtec. That is what I use as my vinyl cutter, and absolutely it cuts very fine details. I love it. It's never given me a problem. I use, I'll have to check what blade I use. I think I use the same one as that I used in my silhouette. And yeah, I forget what it's called, but I've used the same blade forever. I've never changed it. I've had the Graphtec for 3 years now, and it cuts, yeah, it has cut everything I've wanted it to. It doesn't like 810 as well. Maybe I have to change the settings, but I'm too lazy to do that. And so 810 is a little bit harder to cut, although it still does, but it cuts 631 like a breeze. I love it. How long after you paint do you stencil? On what? Paint the background? Or what? Can you define what you mean? If you're talking a painted background and then stenciling on top of that, I do it as soon as it's dry, which is usually typically right away, because I don't like to do a ton on the base coat if we're doing a painted sign. I will baby wipe it so it's more like a stain, and then go in right with the stencil on the top. Yes, CB09. That's what I was trying to think. I was like, I know there's a CB and a number 9 in it. But yeah, that's what it is. And I think I have that in my graph tech as well. I know I have had that in my silhouette, but I think I have that in the graph tech as well. This is my baby. This is my youngest, Gracia. She's almost 5. Can you say hi?
Hi.
Hi. She likes to join me out here. Okay, so that is it. I think, you guys, thanks for coming here with me. Do you sand? Okay, how long after you paint you sand? Same thing, just when it's dry. I just don't want it tacky because that can kind of mess up the paint. I want it nice and dry, but as you noticed, I mean, I sanded it pretty much right when I was done. So again, just once it's dry to the touch, you can go ahead and give it a sand. Yep, Tina, I got the graph tech from US Cutter. Pretty much everything I buy from US Cutter, all my supplies as far as my vinyl and my transfer tape and my equipment that I've purchased has been from US Cutter. All right, you guys, so that's it. I'm gonna head out, but there's your finished sign. I will post a picture of this and then comment on it if you think it's nice, and I will give it away to somebody. So, and it's not gonna be finished on the back. I'll write you a little note, but I never finish the backs unless it's a custom. But at parties, we do not finish the back because when I always say when it's on the wall, nobody sees the back anyways. So again, a step that you can skip if you're doing that is don't finish the back at parties. So, all right, you guys, that was part 2. Join me next Tuesday for part number 3 in how to get a rustic look for your sign. So thanks for joining me, and we will talk soon. Bye.